Hey Book Dragons, I'm so glad you joined me today. Whether you're a new Book Dragon or a returning Book Dragon, I'm just really glad to have you. And this is my monthly update where I talk about all the books I read in October and what I plan to read in November, and then we're going to talk about some October highlights. So stick around, get some snacks and drinks if you need to. I won't keep you long, but I figured you might be interested in some of the stuff I have to say. And eyes on, as always. And we're going to talk about what I read in October. Now, October was, of course, spooky month. So I had to read some spooky books. Well, I didn't have to, but I wanted to. Because it's spooky month. You can't not read spooky books. So the first one that I want to talk about today is a collection of short vignettes that make up a book. It's kind of like a serial book. And that is The Boy in the Iron Box by Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan. I do have a review for this on the channel if you want to check it out. So I can link that in the cards at the end of the video. I won't elaborate on it here too much, but I really quite enjoyed it. It was definitely an interesting read for me, and it makes me want to read more from Guillermo del Toro at some point. I also read The Shining by Stephen King. And guys, I absolutely loved The Shining. Salem's Lot is still my favorite Stephen King book, I think. But The Shining is a close second. And I'm just really happy with how well that book was written, how much the story engaged me. I feel like Stephen King really does well when he sets out to write a shorter book. The next book I want to talk about is Fool's Fate. This is the final book in the Tawny Man trilogy. I also did a video talking about why I think you should read the Tawny Man trilogy by Robin Hobb. That is the third book series in the realm of the Elderlings. And it was just such a magnificent book, guys. Probably going to be my book of the year. I would be shocked if anything else came close to it, to be perfectly honest. And I did a buddy read with Danielle from Bookcara for this book, and we just both really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend that series, and you can look forward to more on Realm of the Elderlings from me, because I will be doing the next series, which is the Rainwild Chronicles, next year. Stay tuned for more on that, but yeah, Fool's Fate was magnificent, guys. I also read Children of Dune by Frank Herbert. I was really disappointed. I enjoyed it. It wasn't bad. There were definitely some great moments in this book, but I think it was just bogged down by really heavy political intrigue and a lot of dialogue that didn't always make sense at times. It was enjoyable, but I felt myself wishing time and again, okay, when are we going to get to the really juicy parts? And there were a couple of those, but it never really fulfilled my desires for a Dune book. And, you know, it's Frank Herbert's work. I shouldn't have any expectations on his work, right? But I feel like I enjoyed this the least out of the 3 books I've read so far. I'm just really sad that I didn't like this book more than I did. If I was to rate it, and I'm not going to do a book review on this book because, it's in the middle of the series, and, I could maybe do a spoiler-filled review, but I don't know if I could even do that justice. So I'm just going to leave it alone. This would go in my shiny tier. Not anything spectacular, not something I found boring necessarily, but it's shiny. It's just mid. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on Children of Dune. And then the final book that I read in October was Nemesis Games by James S.A. Corey, book 5 in the Expanse series, and I am just continuing to love this series so much. It's just really great. I buddy read this with my buddy Carl over at Geek on My Sleeve, and he's just super fun to do buddy reads with. We're both really enjoying the Expanse series. And I am hoping to finish this series next year. So stay tuned for more on that, okay? So that's October. Let's move into November. And the first book I've got on the docket for November is God Emperor of Dune by Frank Herbert. And yes, I will be reading the fourth book, continuing right on from Children of Dune, because it pretty much leads right into God Emperor. So I'm going to give a book 4 a shot. And then if I decide to continue the series and finish it, that will be next year. But as of right now, I'm going to read God Emperor of Dune. And that is a buddy read in the Dragon's Den Discord, which I'll have a link to in the description if you're interested. Drew over at Drew's Book Reviews is championing that buddy read, so he's hosting that in our Discord. You can check that out. I'm also doing this buddy read with my buddy Carl over at Geek on My Sleeve. We're also going to read God Emperor together, so I'm really stoked about that, to bring him into that. That'll be a lot of fun. And then, guys, I am going to read the final book in the Hyperion Cantos, Rise of Endymion. I really enjoyed Endymion. It's not as good as Hyperion or Fall of Hyperion in my opinion, but it's still a really great book. And I am looking forward to finishing the saga. I know there's a short story that is connected with the Cantos, so once I finish that, I may read the short story as well at some point, but at least I'll have the main Hyperion Cantos finished, and I'm super excited about that. So, moving on from there, I am doing The Big Four by Agatha Christie. That is the next book in the sequence of Hercule Poirot, and I'm buddy reading this with my good friend Mona Lisa over at Mona Lisa Reads. She and I have been working through the Hercule Poirot catalog, and I'm really excited to continue. And then, guys, I am reading The Ice Dragon by George R.R. Martin. I am so excited to read this book, and it's a really short book, which I think I need a short book, because even though The Big Four is a shorter book, all of Agatha Christie's books are, I need another really short book this month, because God Emperor and Rise of Endymion are pretty chunky. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to a nice short read. I'll probably knock this out of the way first during the month, or maybe I'll save it for like a palate cleanser in between books. I haven't decided yet, so we'll see. But I can't wait to read this little book. All right, and you know what time it is, guys. It is time for my Stein of Power. This is where I pick a book out of my Stein of Power, a reading prompt out of my Stein of Power, rather, to read in the month. Now, you might be saying, Chaz, why are you picking another book? You've already got 4. What can I say? I'm challenging myself. So here we go. All right, so I've got a pick here, and this is, let's see here. Oh, yes, it's a short book. Look at that. It's a short book. So, I have the perfect book for this. I have the perfect book. And you might think I'm crazy, but I have another short George R.R. Martin book. This just might be the month of George R.R. Martin. That is Night Flyers by George R.R. Martin. This is a short science fiction book that I've been wanting to read. So I think I'm going to just throw this in the hat and call it good. So I'm super excited to read this, and I'm really glad I have another short book for the month. That's a good thing, right? It means I might actually finish all my books for the month. All right, guys. So that is everything I've got for November as far as reading goes. I do want to talk about some highlights from October. The first one of those is Chasm Friends. I had the amazing Carlos and Yolanda on my channel for Chasm Friends, and I am so happy that they got to join me. We had such a great discussion, and I hope you will check it out if you have not already seen it, or even if you have already seen it and you want to rewatch it, I'm not going to tell you no. So yeah, we had such a blast, such a great talk, and I hope to have them back in the future. It was a really good time. So make sure you check that out. So, in talking about highlights for the month of October, I did not even mention my book release. So, the sponsor for today's video is me. My new book, The Nomad's Crucible, released on October 15th, and you can now purchase it and experience it for yourself on ebook or in paperback format. And I truly hope you enjoy this book as much as I enjoyed writing it. And then I'm going to just briefly tell you about some of the stuff that I watched in October. And of course, it was spooky month, so I watched a lot of scary movies. Now, these first ones I'm going to talk about are not spooky. I finished the newest season of Doctor Who with Judy Godwin. Absolutely loved it. I'm just going to kind of breeze on by that one because it was just the final episode in that season that I knocked out at the beginning of the month. I also watched The Acolyte on Disney Plus. It's one of the newer Star Wars shows, and I really quite enjoyed it, and I'm really bummed it got canceled because it was going a really interesting direction. And then I watched the movie Life with Ryan Reynolds and several other well-known actors and actresses. And it's a space horror about finding alien life, basically. And oh gosh, guys, yeah, it was unsettling, but it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend Life. I also watched The Conjuring for the first time. I'd never seen that, and I understand there's a whole lot of movies in the Conjuring universe, so that could be interesting to get into. I also watched The Shining. I do have a dual review of the book and the movie, so if you want to check out that review, you can do so. I won't spend any more time on it here, but the movie was not great for me. I watched Salem's Lot, both the new one on HBO Max and the original miniseries from the 70s. And I liked the one from the 70s better, although they were both really good. They had their pros, they had their cons, but overall, I think the original miniseries did the book better justice. I also watched The Last Voyage of the Demeter, and guys, I've been wanting to see this one for a while. If you're not familiar with the Demeter, it is the sailing vessel that brought Dracula to England. And so it's mentioned briefly in the book Dracula, and this movie expands on what actually happened to the fateful voyage of the Demeter. And oh, guys, it was so good. Liam Cunningham is the captain of the ship, and he is such a great actor. I've loved him in everything I've seen him in, so I highly recommend Last Voyage of the Demeter. And then as far as games go, I played Cthulhu Death May Die for the first time. And oh man, guys, it was a 3-hour game, but it was so much fun. Absolutely loved it. It's basically a bunch of occult detectives trying to survive and destroy one of the elder gods. It's just such a fun game. I absolutely loved it. I also had my youngest child over for my birthday, and we got to play Tetris. They own Tetris, the board game, and I never heard of it as a board game, but it's a lot of fun. It's kind of like Tetris meets Connect 4, and so instead of the colored dots, you're dropping the different Tetris tiles down to try and make your grid and everything. It was a lot of fun. I had a blast playing it. And we also played a new game called Flamecraft, which my youngest got me for my birthday. And I'd played it before, but it was a lot of fun playing that again. So, yeah, I had a lot of great fun in the month of October. And I'm just so glad I got to share some of that with you guys. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about the video. What do you think about the books I read in October and what I plan to read in November? and tell me what you did in October and what you're planning for November. I would love to hear that from you. And until next time, guys, make sure you read more books. I'll talk to you soon. And I'd like to give a huge shout out to my patrons. Your support really means a lot to me, so thank you very much.